So today we're going to go over how to make your slab mug. The first thing you're going to need is to figure out what shape you want. So we have a lot of pre-made templates. These ones will give you things like inclined edges, right? This one gets a little smaller as it goes towards the bottom. This one does too, at a slightly slower rate. You can choose one of those templates or you can make your own. Your template is going to be the exact size of the mug, and obviously that would be far too large for a mug. So if you want one with just straight sides, we can fold a sheet of paper, and that will give you this size mug. The nice thing is we can see exactly how large our mug would be, right? Based on the template that we create. So once you've made that decision, we need to get our mat, we need to get clay, a rolling pin, and a card. And we're going to roll out a slab. Now this slab will be a little different than the last one we rolled. It's got to be longer, so it's got to be stretched out in one direction. Remember, we're not trying to roll out our slab really quickly. We take our time, push firmly, and roll across the entire piece of clay. It does help to lift up the clay, roll in different directions. But ultimately, we're going to need a piece of clay that's long enough and wide enough for our template. Going for an even thickness between 1/4 and 1/2 inch. All right, now we're getting there. Okay, so this template, or this slab, I should say, is just about big enough for our template. We want to check and make sure the thickness is even all the way across. It looks a little thicker on that kind of left side. I'm going to roll that out a touch. And once we have our slab big enough, we're going to card it smooth. So firmly card your slab. We want to work up that surface, smooth it out. We're pushing some of the bigger particles into the clay, leaving the smaller, finer ones on top. And you're going to flip it over and card the other side too. And just hold your card at a slight angle and drag it in different directions across your slab. Next, we're going to cut the template to size. So just set your paper on the slab, grab your fettling knife, and keep it pressed right on the edge of the paper. Just drag it slowly along that edge. Now this extra clay, you're going to put it in your plastic bag. We can use that for the base. We can use it for the handle. We can use it for our next piece as well. And this is a good time if you are going to stamp or press some texture onto your mug. This is not required, but since the slab is flat, this is the easiest time to press that texture into your mug. Now be gentle with it. You don't want to distort the shape of your mug. You can press with your hands. I'm just trying to get a nice even pressure. And imprint that design as well as I can. The next thing we have to do is cut some 45-degree angles on both sides of our mug, and that'll help us join them. If I hold my fettling knife straight up and down, that's a 90-degree angle. So about halfway between straight up and down in the table, and just cut off the edge, the outside edge. Right, so now I've got an angle on there. I'm going to flip it over and do the exact same thing on the other side, same direction. And you'll see that's just going to help us join the two sides. They're going to overlap nicely now. I'm going to grab my slip if I have it. In my case, I'm just going to make the slip by scoring the clay, adding some water, and then I'll join the two sides. And I've got the slip on there. I'm overlapping it just a little bit. Then I'm going to add some support behind it, and then just blend two ends together. It's a good idea at this point to blend the inside as well, which I kind of forgot here. So I'll skip where I do that. And the reason we do that before we put the base on is because then we can reach into both sides. So right about here, I remember. So grab a tool and just hide that joint, blend it together. You don't want that in your mug. You take your finger or a wet sponge and really, really smooth that out. Okay. Once you've got that done, then you're going to take some of your extra clay. We're going to roll that into a ball. Flatten it out and roll it into a circle that we're going to use for our base. So again, about the same thickness, between 1/4 and 1/2 inch thick. I can set my bug on here, and then I can find any tool with a fine tip. Or use my fettling knife just to cut the clay around it. I can either outline the mug, take it off and cut it, or just start in there and cut it. All right, so now it's the size of the bottom of my mug. Then I'm going to score and slip it. Definitely want the bottom of my mug to stay on. Now in my case, since I had to go back and do that seam, it might not be in exactly the same position as before. I can use my rolling pin to kind of push it around, and it's pretty easy for me to trim any excess. So I tap it on the table, get that joined. Clean up any extra clay. You can do that now. Actually, probably a little nicer to do it when it has started to get a little harder, so I'm just gonna leave that for now. The last thing I want to do is make my foot ring. So if I put a little bit of water on my finger and just gently start pressing around the edge, I can make the bottom concave, and that creates a foot for my mug. Well, now, not much to do except wait. We have to let our mug get harder, get some strength before we can start